morning.
Good morning. That was the quickest countdown ever because we were chatting.
Yeah.
Yep.
You were talking too much, huh?
Week 3, here we are.
Yes. How's everyone doing today? Hello, hello. I was waiting for someone to say something. I don't know why.
Yep. I don't think they're going to. We'll have to read what
Good
they
morning.
write. Good
Hi,
morning.
Terry and Karen and Connie.
Yep. Hope everyone had a great weekend and
Yeah.
is ready to get started for week 3.
I
I don't want you to leave, but the files should be in your
I don't want
account.
you to
So don't leave just yet.
You know you've probably downloaded them.
Mhm. So some of you may know what it looks like already, but we'll show you what it looks like if you haven't seen it and in an actual quilt. So,
Yes, absolutely.
yeah, I'm ready to rip the numbers off.
I know she's very excited. And it is different seeing it in the files and seeing it
It is
on the quilt.
It really is.
I think so.
I think they probably think so too, because as you're stitching your blocks out,
Yeah.
they can watch it kind of come to life as they're stitching it out, which makes it lots of fun.
So before we get started, we have not yet had a red ticket claimed from last week. So we're going to give you an extra day, end of day today. Okay. So at like midnight tonight is the cutoff. So I'm going to read the ticket. We'll type it in there too. But if you don't claim it, we're going to draw a new one on Tuesday, which is tomorrow. So week 2 red ticket was 933185. I'm going to type it in here too. 933185. 933185. And yeah, this is the week 2. This is not today. This is not week 3. We are going to draw a red ticket at the end of the live today for this week, week 3, but we are still looking for week 2. Okay. We posted it in our VIP Facebook group. I'll probably get an email sent out today to that effect as well. But if we don't get a week 2 winner, we're going to draw a new one tomorrow.
You don't want to leave that money in that store credit laying on the table.
Very true. And the red ticket winner will get $100 in Hoop Sister store credit. So I'd be checking my ticket if I was you.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay.
Ready? Are we going to take down week 3?
Yes.
Are you guys ready?
Yes.
All right.
Whoa.
That's too much of a tease.
Here we go. Oh, wow. This does not want to come off today.
Okay.
All right. There it is. Week 3. I'm going to grab this one too.
Oh gosh, I pulled the whole pin out.
I know. I did too on that one.
That,
and I'll get this one also down here. So we won't worry about the bottom. You guys can't even see the bottom at this point.
I have a picture too I can pull out.
There we go. Very pretty. We grab the safety pins out of there. We don't have to, but oh, that one's stubborn.
Yeah, they're kind of hard to get out. Get off of there.
So,
what do you guys think?
There you go. It's looking good. It's starting to look like something awesome.
Yes, it is. And one of my sneaky favorite parts that is kind of hard to pick up is this honeycomb quilting that is included. So pretty. They're excited for week 3.
This is one of the blocks in the blue.
So pretty.
Again, I was hoping that the honeycomb quilting would pop out better, but you know,
try it over here.
Some of them were, a lot of you were doing the quilting with maybe another color. And if you're doing it with a different color, quilting thread, of course, will show up a little bit. You can kind of see it on the bigger one.
Man, the size difference too.
I know. This is a 5-inch in the blue. That's like all blue tones. And then one that is similar to the quilt kits that some of you have bought. And that has the honeycomb quilting. They both have wool in them on these. So a lot of the blocks that we did in the last couple of weeks, we did not use wool. Today, I am going to show you how to add wool to the top of your battleizer if you're going to add it. What we ask you to do, if you're going to use wool, we tell you what size to cut it. And then we also tell you to prepare it by pressing on the edges. I like to use a little piece of parchment paper between my iron and the wool so it doesn't stick to my iron, and just press it in about 1/4 of an inch. And the reason we do that is so that your presser foot, when you're doing the zigzag to attach it to your battleizer, so the presser foot does not get caught in there. The wool is quite lofty, as you can see. And then when you press it, it's much better to stitch across like that. So, and the other thing that we ask you to do if you are going to use wool is to raise your presser foot just a little bit so it skims over the surface of that wool, because some of our designs, it will actually stitch the pattern onto the wool. So, and this particular one, I think we're pretty much just adding piece of fabric to the top. So, and these are in the design, if we can show them up here again, Aubrey, is that these are called, basically, as you know, you're doing 4 blocks every week of the same thing. So it's basically 4 sections like this. So you are going to get, this is C1 and A3 today. And once you do a quarter of this and then you do the other 3, it's then you're going to turn that quarter. So as you can see, this is actually A3. Hopefully this isn't confusing anyone, but there is a
Confusing
diagram.
me, but I'm sure they know.
All right. You're not even listening.
I am too.
But today, I believe we are stitching block A3. And so you want me to head over there and we'll get started?
Well, actually, if you don't mind, I also want to pull up this image.
Okay.
Go away.
Okay.
Not you. Someone tried to call me. Get out of here. Don't call me right now. I actually want to pull this image up on stage because then they can see the full view.
Yeah.
So as she was saying, these are the ones you're getting today, right?
Actually,
I don't know if they can even see my mouse.
Yeah. That one. Yeah. One at the top and one over on the side.
Yeah.
So that's what we're going to do today.
All right.
All right. Okay. So we are here. Can they hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So we are here at the machine. And so the first step in pretty much, I believe, all of our designs is to hoop your battleizer and to sew a placement stitch. And the placement stitch is so that you know where to place either your wool or your next piece of fabric. And as I promised, I'm going to show you how to add an extra layer of wool so that you can get a little more dimension if you want to. And you basically prepare it like I told you. And then you're just going to lay it right down inside of that placement stitch. Now, these stitches are done with water-soluble thread just because you don't want all that thread build up in there. But I've done the green thread just because I want you to be able to see what the machine is stitching. So this is our step. Actually, it is our step. Am I in the right step? I'm going to back it up a little bit. There. Okay. So now I'm going to do step 2, which is zigzagging that wool to your battleizer. You just need to make sure the wool stays in place as it's stitching. And again, this step is optional. And then on our next step is where we're going to add our background fabric on top of your battleizer or your wool, whichever way you decided to go. And you're just going to center it over the design. I like to peek underneath, make sure I have equal amounts on both sides and also on the top and bottom. I'm going to scoot it down a little bit. All right, that looks good. And again, this is a water-soluble step. And this is important that you use water-soluble in this step simply because once you sew this block to another block, you're going to sew right on that stitching. And if that stitching to tack this fabric down shows on the front, you won't have to use the seam ripper to get it out. You can just simply get it wet. So it's going to do the tack down. Again, I'm using the green so you can see it. And I'm just making sure my fabric stays nice and smooth.
I have a question that's timely if you're up for a minute.
I like timely questions.
Okay. So, Trisha over on YouTube asked,
Can I just pause for a second? In this step, it also does a placement for the applique. Okay, what is Trisha's question?
she is asking, is there a need to do the zigzag if you're not using wool?
That's a very good question, Trisha. If you are not adding the wool, you skip right over to step 3. On your machine, you should have a button that takes you to the next step, and you should be able to just hit that button and then be on step 3 and do what we're doing right now. Okay, and I'm just going to cut a little thread tail here. I do not have my automatic thread cutter on. I have it turned off. A lot of times in our designs, we may ask you to turn it on, but that is typically only if you have the backing added. And we're not doing that in this quilt. So you can have it turned on, but once in a while you might have a thread tail to clip. So you can see there's a little bit of applique coming up in this one, which makes it fun. Then you can add all those really colorful strips to it. Okay, so I don't know if anyone's ever watched a cooking class before, but sometimes, especially if they're trying to show you how to make bread, they'll like skip ahead a little bit. And I'm going to do that right now. So our next step in the design would be to do that honeycomb quilting. And I have already done that. So I'm going to switch hoops and hope everything matches perfectly. So as you can see, I have done a couple steps ahead of time. Here I have, trying to make you see it better. You can see I have the honeycomb quilting in this one already done. That would be the next step. The step after that would be doing the stem stitches and the leaves. So I put the green thread in and I did that. And let me see, I'm going to have to move my machine steps forward too. So there's the green. And then the next step is you will be putting water soluble thread in the needle only. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. And on those steps, what you're doing is you are adding your applique fabric. So this is where you can pull from all your colorful strips of fabric. You can choose which color you want to use for your applique. It can be anything you want, but I will tell you, and when we get to it, I'll mention it again, that there's this area down here. I'm going to grab this. This is our big 8-inch block, but you can see that this area down here is going to meet up with another. I know this is the 8-inch, but it's going to meet up with another to make it a full flower. You can have half of it on A3 and half of it on C1. So when you do those steps in there, you're going to want to make sure that it is the same color fabric. All right, so I got to change my thread, make sure I'm on the right step. And I'm going to show you how to do the, how to put the applique fabric down and trim it. And then we got a lot of pretty embroidery to do right over the top of the applique. Okay, so this is step 6, was adding this flower that I chose purple. And you can't see it, purple. Step 7, and I'm doing block A3, is I chose the yellow. So now let me move this to the step I'm on. Okay, so this is step 8, and step 8 is we can choose another color of our colorful thread. So I think I'll do the orange. And one of the steps it did earlier on, I believe step 3, is it did that placement stitch. So I can see that here. You may have trouble seeing it, but when you're sitting right in front of it, you can definitely see it. And you just place your fabric right over the top, peek underneath, make sure you're sufficiently covered, and then hit the start button and it'll do a tack down stitch. We like to use water soluble thread for this step. because then you won't have to change it constantly and change the colors. All right, so now I'm going to take this out, and with my hoop scissors mini, I'm going to trim real close to the stitching. Spin it around a little bit, get to all the sides. And then I'm just going to take my strip of fabric and put it back in my basket of colorful strips. And then step 9, it's calling for the green fabric, which is the leaf that's right here. And your one of the first pages of your instructions will tell you exactly what size to cut that. So I'm going to place that right there and hit the start button. And it's going to do the tack down. If you notice, our tack downs go around the applique twice. And that's so if you happen to, like, oops, snip one of those threads, hopefully there's another thread there to keep the fabric in place. Okay. And now I'm just going to use my hoop scissors mini again to trim around the little leaf. Okay. And now this applique here is going to come along later. We are going to first do some different color stitching inside of that applique. So I think I'm going to go crazy and do like a bright yellow. And your instructions will have a diagram to show you what stitches for each step. And you probably can see that also on your machine. That way you have an idea of what's going to happen for the next step. All right, so let's change it to yellow on top of that purple. And now it's going to do some more little embroidery detail on top of the same applique. And the machine will stop so you can change the color of your thread. So I'm going to try this color here. It can be any color you want. Since you have all those threads that match all your colorful strips, you have a basket of thread too. So just pick one of those. You can use contrasting thread or thread that matches or slightly lighter or darker, whatever you want to use. The next step is going to be the satin cover stitch that goes around the raw edges of your applique. So in this step, we suggest that you match your thread to your applique fabric. So I'm going to put a purple in here. And it's going to sew the satin stitches. So Ari, were there any questions that have come up since while we watched this sew?
Well, a couple nice comments, we'll throw that.
Aw. It's kind of scary the first time doing a mystery quilt, isn't it, Betsy? Good for you. You're very brave. Kimberly says, so is one of the final steps to wash the entire quilt and remove the water-soluble thread. Kimberly, you can do that. I would suggest that you don't have to, but you can. If you are going to wash your quilt, you can just put it on a cold rinse. You don't have to actually even use soap. A gentle cycle, cold rinse. And then what I like to do is I like to just, once it's done the spin cycle, just go ahead and lay it flat on a bed. I don't have a lot of floor space in my house. Well, I probably could, but I just prefer to put it on a bed and smooth it out. And I turn on the ceiling fan, and halfway through the day, I can flip it over. And by the end of the day, it is completely dry and your water soluble thread is gone. If you decide you don't want to put it in the washing machine, the areas where you can see the water soluble thread, just get a Q-tip and some water and dab it on there and just let it dissolve. So you could do it either way. Can I use extra batting instead of wool? Well, I think, Dana, it might depend on the batting you use. If you have like a lofty polyester or bamboo, you can try that. But I would test it out first on some scrap fabric to see how you like it. We like to use the wool because it is lightweight and it does give you a nice loft. So I would test it out on some scraps first. And it's completely, really not even necessary. It's just a little added dimension if you wanted to put a little more dimension in your quilt. Beth says, hey, Annie, do you have when to put the wool in the instructions? Yes, we do. It's usually on step 2. Yep. Step 2 is usually when you're going to add your extra layer of wool. Okay. Our next step is going to be we've moved to this other applique flower. So I'm just going to hit the start button using the same thread. You can change your thread color if you want to, but it's going to do some embroidery in the center of that flower. This step also, towards the end of the step, will also do a real pretty chain stitch around the outer edge of this flower. And then after this, I'm going to change the thread again, and it's going to do another color of a chain stitch on the outside of that. And that's what covers the raw edge on this flower. Sure. Go ahead.
All right, here's the question from Marcia.
Hi, Marcia. She says, would it be best to use 101 on the white kit fabric? It seems a little lighter weight. I'm not using wool. Marcia, we have not used anything like that, anything extra in there like that. And even though maybe the white may seem a little thin, you definitely, once you get it on the battleizer on the wool, you cannot see anything through it. So I don't really think it's necessary. And it possibly could make it feel a little bit more stiff. So you can try it if you want to. It's not something that I would recommend. All right, I'm going to change the thread again so we get another color in here. Okay, it's going to do another row of chain stitches right here. There's a lot of detail in these blocks, but the result is amazing. And guess what? Another row of chain stitches. It just looks so pretty because it looks pretty from a distance, and you get up close and you see even more detail in it. Whoops, did something wrong here. Never mind. Hitting the wrong buttons on my machine this morning. And Carol asks, is there a right side to the wool? Carol, I don't think that there is. So I think you could use it either direction. It looks the same on the front and the back. Of course, once you get it pressed, there's an obvious press the edges. Then there's kind of an obvious side to it. Okay, lots of detail. Like I said, now we're moving over to the leaf, and you can put a contrasting thread in the needle and sew the stitching right on top of the leaf. This is a cute little checkerboard design. Makes it interesting. I'm gonna stop and trim a thread tail. Oh, hold on here. What? And Paulette asks, when do the others? When we do, thank you for helping me read. When we do the other side, do we need to reverse the pattern? No, you don't, Paulette. The other side, what we're stitching today is A3. The other side is C1. So you don't have to do any reversing. We've already done it for you. Matter of fact, the other side, that block has different applique on it. It looks a lot different. All right, so now I'm going to put some light green or some green that matches my leaf fabric in the needle, and it's going to do some more pretty stitching. For this step, it tells you to put a light green fabric. My camera's vibrating. A light green thread in the needle. And then the next step, it says to use a dark green. Just to save a little time here, and you can do this if you want to also, is I'm just going to let it go on and do the next step that calls for dark green using the same thread. It also stitches some pretty leaves underneath the other flower. And Janice says, is there a right or wrong side to battleizer for which side to hoop and sew out? Janice, yes, there is. If you look at your battleizer, you will see that one side has a little bit of a scrim to it. That is the side that should be down. I will tell you, if you're using wool, however, it really doesn't matter which side of the battleizer are up and down. But if you're not going to use wool, you're going to want to have the scrim side down. That's a very good question. Okay, now I have to look and see what step I'm on here. Okay, I'm just going to hit the start button again. And this is the one where it wants you to change to a darker color thread. And I'm just going to let it go with the same color. Oh, Debbie. Debbie's asking, did the one already done, the one that was behind us, I'm assuming, with honeycomb, have the wool underneath? Yes, that does have the wool underneath. And I can show you an example of one with a block with and a block without. As soon as we get finished with this block. Let's do another leaf. And Wanda says, can you show the reveal I missed in the beginning? We will. There it is. We can show it behind us now. Yeah, maybe you can point to the one we're stitching now. Okay. Okay. And Wanda, we'll show the one behind us here in just a minute so you can actually see it behind us. A lot of detail, even in the leaves. Okay, Darlis has a question. She just wants a little confirmation on the A's, ABC, 1, 2, 3, and all that good stuff. And basically, if you're familiar with an Excel spreadsheet, it's like rows and columns. So we've got A, this is our A, B, and C column. Look at the quilt as a quarter of it because you're going to make 4 of each one. So we've got our A, B, and C column and our 1, 2, 3. So this would be A1, B1, C1. This is how our blocks are labeled. A2, B2, C2, and this would be A3. Oh,
B.
wait a minute, A3, B3. It's harder than it looks. And this would be C3.
Yep.
So basically, you've got the 9 blocks plus the border that you're working on, and you will make 4 of each of these blocks that are inside here. So hopefully that helps. And Darlis, if you need more explanation, you can always contact us, and maybe Aubrey can put up the Nita's information up on the screen. All right, what's my next step? Let's see. We are going to be doing some stitching now in this area. So we're going to put a contrasting thread that contrasts with my orange. I'm going to put a teal thread in there. And we're going to do some more stitching on that one. Every little flower has some detail on it that is unique to that flower. Okay. All right, I'm going to hit the button again. You can change the thread here if you want to have a different colored thread. It's going to do some more embroidery on top of the orange flower.
It's not a question, but we do have a week 2 winner, and Nina will check her email when we get done.
Kim says, good morning. I have the winning ticket you read for last week. Congratulations, Kim. That's awesome. I'm glad you realized it. All right, for the next step, I'm going to, let's see, what color thread are we doing? Thread that matches your fabric and the needle only. And it's going to cover our raw edges. All right, now we're going to add our final applique to this. And this is the one where this is our A3 block. Our applique is going to go here. If you're doing your C1 block, that flower matches up to it. You just need to maybe on that step, which is step 22 in your instructions, maybe just jot down right here what fabric you used. And that way, if you come back to it later and you forget, you will know that you need to use the same color fabric. That way, those two flowers will match up. And I must like hot pink. I think I keep going back to hot pink for that big flower. And I'm just going to lay my strip of fabric on there. You can use, and this step, you can use whatever thread color you want to. You can match it. I'm just going to use something a little bit lighter. I'm lazy on the thread changes. I'm going to use this color because on the next step, I can also use that same color and not have to change my thread. Just call me lazy. All right, and then this is where we're going to get out our little hoop scissors mini again, and we're going to trim just on the inside of the block. The outside of the block, that fabric you will just leave there, and we're going to trim around the applique. Take the hoop all the way out. It'll make it easier for me to trim. Some of your machines may have a feature where you can bring your hoop forward so that you can do trimming, but sometimes it's easier to take it out and just spin it around to trim it. I would just advise that if you take it out, just keep it on a flat surface when you're trimming. Don't try to take it out and lay it in your lap because that could make it come out of kilter. It could make it pop out of the hoop. I'm going to go ahead and hit the button again. And it's going to do some more pretty stitching, and we're just about done with this.
Can I take over for just a minute? Oh, shoot. My mic was over here that whole time, Mom. I hope they seem like they could hear you okay. Okay. So while she's doing that, I just want to let everybody know typically what we do. See how, Nina, see how I just clicked that and it pulled something else up? That happens sometimes. I just want to let you all know that after next week, when we do the final reveal, the price of the mystery quilt goes up to $120. Okay. So it's $94 right now, which is kind of like the in mystery price where you get a little bit of a discount reward just for trusting the process and jumping in. So we encourage you to do that. And I'll drop that link again. But in case you have not yet decided to participate, I did want to pop up just a couple little notes about the quilt. So it does come with 5-inch and 8-inch block sizes. For the 5-inch, you're going to get a quilt that's about 34 by 34 inches. And for if you do the 8-inch blocks, you'd be at 53.5 by 53.5 inches. There's 36 blocks plus the border blocks. So if you're thinking about jumping in, now's the time to do it. I think I have this link ready. So if you were thinking about it, it's $94 right now. After next week, when the reveal happens, it's going up to $120. So if you like it a little, think about it and jump in there. And if you have any other questions about Mystery Quilt, do reach out to Nina. Her information is right there at the bottom of the screen. So after the live, she's busy during the live, but after the live, she will be available to help answer any questions as well. Okay, Mom, I'm going to give your mic back, and I have a question for you.
Okay.
Okay, we have gone to the next step, and I just left the same thread color in it. It's basically doing the satin stitch around the raw edge. And you have a question for me, Aubrey. Dee says, I have a white background that has the little beads all over it. Would it be okay to use it for the background block? Oh, absolutely, Dee. I think that would be super cute. I think you should do it. This has a really nice satin stitch around this part of the flower. Very wide and beautiful. Went a little lighter on my thread just to see what it would look like. Yep. Beverly says, if I purchase the quilt for download, will the full instructions be there, or will the final come next week? Well, the final will come next week, Beverly, because it is a mystery quilt, but every week you will go back to your same purchase and just download it again, and that we will continue to add things to that download as we progress. All right, we have the final step is what we're on, and it's basically the center of the flower. So I think I'll put some yellow in there. I'm just going to change the thread again. And then we can probably real quickly, we'll talk about trimming the block. Okay, we are finished. I'm coming over to you, Aubrey. All right. So here it is. And there is one, the blue one has wool in it, and the one we just stitched today does not. So as you can see, this is the A3 we stitched. Shoot. Oh, no.
Okay, try again.
All right,
They could
sorry
hear you a
about
little
that.
probably.
Okay, so you can see the difference between using wool and not using wool. It still looks beautiful. It's just that honeycomb quilting pops out a little bit more.
Sure does.
This is the A3 block that we just stitched, and this one is the C1. So you can see how once they're sewn together, they will join up with that block. And let's just take this out. We're going to talk a little bit about trimming. Aubrey, can we show the quilt behind us again? Okay, so I'm just going to give you the basics for trimming. Your instructions will give you more detailed instructions, but basically any block that is that's going to have binding sewn to it. So here it is, the outside edge of your border. Those blocks are trimmed on that outside edge 1/4 of an inch from the basting stitch, and that gives you something to sew your binding to. If you have a block that is joined to another block, whoops, then those blocks will be trimmed using the trimmer by George. So we just stitched A3, which is this one. It is inside your quilt. There's no binding attached to any of the sides. So on this one, you're going to trim all 4 sides using the trimmer by George. The only exception would be is if you decide to not sew the bind or the border, and you want this to be the outside edge. But in this case here, we're going to trim all 4 sides just so you can see how to use the trimmer by George. Okay. So let's explain for somebody new who may be watching what the trimmer by George is. This is our trimmer by George. It is an acrylic ruler. The only difference between this and other acrylic rulers is really the most important part is that it has this metal edge attached to it. And this metal edge is what is going to protect your fabric on the front. And it also gives you a straight edge to cut against so that you can remove the bulk from your seams. So I'm going to take my trimmer by George tool, my metal edge side, and I'm going to just pull the fabric back, and I'm going to shimmy that metal edge right in there up to the stitching. And then I'm going to lay the trimmer by George down. I have a little thread here. I like to give it just a very gentle tug. If you tug too far, you're going to end up pulling it out past the metal edge. And I always do a visual to make sure there's no fabric peeking out. And then I can use my rotary cutter and the straight edge of the metal part of the trimmer by George to cut against. You will need a 60mm rotary cutter. And that's because that metal edge just does lift up the ruler a little bit. And that's why you need a little more distance between the screw and where it cuts. So I'm going to go ahead and trim this just like that. And so then we have one side where we have removed the bulk from the seam. And we're going to do that on all 4 sides. So you get to watch me do it 3 more times. You shimmy it in there, lay it down, do a gentle tug, make sure no fabric is peeking out, and then use the metal edge to cut against using a 60mm rotary cutter. So I'm going to just keep going around till we get it all finished. Shimmy it in there, lay it down, a gentle tug. And I will tell you too, if you for some reason don't have a 60 and you're going to try this, maybe I can make it work with my 45. I will tell you, because there's not much distance right here, the screw will end up hitting the trimmer by George, and the result will be you trying to trim on an angle, which could cause you to cut that fabric anyway, totally defeating the purpose of that metal edge on the trimmer by George. I'll spin it around for the last side, shimmy it in there, gentle tug to get it nice and tight, and then you can trim the trimmer by George. So now what we have is we've got our sides where we're joining another block too. We've removed the bulk from the seams, which is amazing. And now what we're going to do is we're going to trim 1/4 inch from the basting stitch. A lot of times on white fabric, one thing you can do if it makes it difficult to see white thread and white fabric and line it up with a 1/4 inch mark on the ruler, if you're trimming from the front, is you can always turn it over and trim from the other side. Sometimes it's a little easier to see it on that side, and just line your 1/4 inch mark up with the basting stitch. Let me whip through here and get this done. We have one more side. Okay, so it's trimmed and it is ready to be sewn to another block. The only last thing that I want to talk about, and again, here we have 2 different colorways, but you can see how it all comes together, is that the angle that it comes out of the hoop. So this is how it was in the hoop. It wasn't like this or like this. Look at your instructions. And what you should do is at the very top inside the seam allowance, you should write down, this is the other block, the block number. And you can use like a friction pen.
That's a great tip.
Because when you go to put it in your quilt, you may end up having it twisted and turned and everything. And then it makes it difficult to figure out where it goes in your quilt.
Then you got a puzzle too.
Right. And so what you would do is, since you're making, since there's 36 blocks on the inside of your quilt, just stack them all up so that they're all going the same way, and then just grab each row as you go. But definitely writing the block number at the top is definitely will be a lifesaver when it's time to join them all together. Okay, that's all I have for everybody today.
Fantastic.
All right.
Okay, I did have 2 more questions starred. They're both from Mary Martin, actually.
Mary's got lots of questions. That's great.
So what speed do you usually do your quilts at, especially with appliques?
I think every machine is going to be slightly different. I usually run mine full speed ahead.
Oh, even on
Um,
the appliques.
Even on the appliques.
Maybe if they're new, don't do that.
I would try it out and see if it seems to have problems. Check your threading, make sure your bobbin thread and your needle thread is threaded properly, and then try it again. Try it on a scrap just to make sure. But if for some reason it is having a little bit of trouble, then you can obviously slow the machine down, make sure you have a new needle in it, and those are all things that will help. But personally, I run mine full speed ahead and it stitches fine. But I have had times when it's been a little finicky and maybe it needs a little TLC at the dealer for cleaning and servicing. But typically try running it at full speed, and I think you can probably get away with it.
Cool. All right. The second question that Mary had.
The wool is washable in cool water, not in hot water, and certainly not in the dryer. So what you would do, Mary, is like we said before, is that you would put it in a cool cycle. If you're going to put it in the washing machine, a gentle cycle on cool water, just a rinse, and then you would lay it flat on a bed to dry. So no hot water and definitely no dryer. Linda, I will say Linda likes to put hers in a dryer on a cool setting, just to tumble it a little bit, and then she lays it flat. But I just lay mine flat, and it doesn't take any time at all to dry.
Here's a comment from Lisa that kind of talks about what you just said.
Yeah, Lisa does full. All right, we're the speed demons in the group, Lisa. I love it. She does full speed, and it works like a charm. When using water soluble, she does have to slow down a bit, especially in the summer humidity. You may run into something like that.
Okay, and then here's a cool tip from Connie.
All right, I put a different color bobbin thread in my placement stitch to aid in trimming your blocks. Connie, that's a great idea, because sometimes it's just hard if you're using water soluble and a white bobbin to see it on the battleizer or see it on the white fabric on the front. So Connie, I like that idea.
All right.
I may have to steal that.
And then here's a question from Janet on Facebook.
Okay, how often do you usually change your needles making a quilt like this? I usually will change mine. If I'm sewing all day long, I'll change it once a day. So like every 8 hours of sewing, I think is also the recommended for most needles, to change it every 8 hours of sewing.
All right.
And
Okay.
also, if you hear the thud, 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 thud on your machine from the needle, definitely time to change. Here we go.